So very good morning, namaste, vanakkam, vandanam. Welcoming you all to today's FDP, the International Faculty Development Program, where we have two very eminent speakers. Just get your notepads and your pens ready. It's going to be a flow of knowledge, experience, wisdom. So it's going to be a beautiful learning experience today. Looking forward to it personally. So let's start with a prayer, requesting you all to adjust yourself, sitting erect, eyes closed. Sahana vavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, saha viryam karvavahai. तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. ॐ. So the first speaker for today is Professor Professor Elangovan sir. Personally, a very, very known person to me. Such a blessing that I know him. A fortune to be a student of his, if I could say that. A mentor to me and many, many students, I would say like thousands of students through his mentoring for PhD, MPhil, all these, both quantitatively as well as qualitatively, he has produced volumes of students who are holding very high positions in various universities and offices now. So without much ado, let me just go through the biodata for your benefits. Professor Elangovan sir, a retired professor and currently the secretary of Tamilnadu State Chapter Committee, has more than 4 decades of teaching experience in schools, universities, colleges, and he served as a member of the VC's convening committee as registrar in charge, as financial officer, controller of examinations, as director in charge of distance education, member of the syndicate twice, member of the financial committee, Senate, governing bodies, and then he has been a member of the steering committee, coordinator of NAC for the Tamilnadu Physical Education and Sports University. He's been the principal for the Savita Physical Education College and then professor and head of yoga for Tamilnadu Physical Education and Sports University, as well as the Meenakshi Academy of Higher Education and Research. Apart from this, the next slide. He's produced, this is again, like I said, this is again a number. 42 PhDs is just a number because count has no value where quality comes in. So this is for record, but he has guided many, many others who were in the department and who knows him personally. More than 130 MPhil awardees and 290 PG holders, produced the first PhD at Tamilnadu Physical Education University very recently. And from Maher in yoga therapy, the first yoga therapy PhD candidate just completed her PhD under his guideship. And he has authored 7 books and more than 30 lesson materials for distance education, published 391 articles in journals, and including co-authorship in many magazines. presented 208 papers internationally and nationally in various conferences, organized more than 250 national and international workshops, seminars, symposiums, workshops, online webinars. It just goes on. This is just a very, very short introduction of Professor Elangovan. Sir, over to you for your presentation now. So we are looking forward to the learning experience that is to happen the next 45 minutes or so. So over to you, Elangovan sir. Thank you for being you. Thank you for mentoring so many, including me, and for all the opportunities that you have created for me and many. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Before sir starts the official presentation, I would like to also express my admiration and deep respect. Whenever I meet Elangovan sir, there's a very beautiful sense of satisfaction. And recently we had the privilege to travel together, going to Hyderabad for the Yoga Tech, and had even extended discussions when our car broke down. And always having the best of the students in heart, and becoming now a staunch pillar of the Indian Yoga Association. And whenever we have asked him for any assistance at Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth, sir has been the first to say yes. So welcoming you, sir, virtually to Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth and ISCM today. Looking forward to listening to you today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam.
I have shared the screen. Is it visible?
Okay. Correct.
Yes.
Is it visible, sir? So
First,
whenever you
yes,
click next, we will keep sliding next.
Yeah, perfect. It's perfect.
Wait, please.
You can go back to the first one. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Hari Om. Hari Om. Good morning to one and all. It gives me immense pleasure to be with you at this August gathering. First of all, my pranams to Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth and its staff officials, including the management, for having given this opportunity. Very particularly, I have to be grateful to Dr. Anandaji for having given this opportunity. We all feel pride and proud to be with Dr. Anandaji. He is a living legend, icon, a scientist, researcher, stalwart, unceasing thinker and writer, and so on. Really, he an outstanding expert in yoga, yoga therapy, music therapy, allopathy medicine, and so on. So we are very fortunate that we are living in his presence, in his world. So very fortunate, and thanks to you, sir, for having given this opportunity. And also my pranams to Dr. Meena Ramanathan, a dynamic and excellent yogini, a great source of knowledge and wisdom. And also, she is highly an authority in yoga therapy and other areas. And my thanks to Dr. Balaji, Dayanidhi, and others also, and very particularly to the participants. Once again, my thanks to Omenta. So my topic today is integrating yoga in the academic curriculum regarding our journey. So before getting into this, we have to understand that once yoga was originated in India and was in India alone. But when Buddhism came into existence, Buddha and other monks, they popularized yoga around India in neighboring countries. And with the advent of Britishers, very particularly the wood roof, the English judge, he translated almost all important Sanskrit books in yoga into English. And our thanks to Swami Vivekananda also. Now it is very popular throughout the world. Out of 811 crore people, 230 crore people are doing yogic practices. Out of 254 countries, 200 countries are embracing yoga. Such a great period that we are living. And now, and also you have to understand that during ancient times, the people who are suffering with so many problems, you might have known Megasthenes, a great traveler. He came to India, he saw the Indian conditions, and he wrote in his Indica. And his experience he noted in that book. He is telling that Indians who have problems, they used to go and approach the yogis who were living in forests. The yogis, that time, they were taking only fruits and vegetables. And also they used to wear the plant leaves and also the barks of the trees. So that time, for every problem, yogi will cure and overcome their sufferings. After that, we could see in ancient yoga education, centers of learning were at home in temples, padhasalas, tolls, and chakrapit and gurukuls. Yoga was one among the 18 subjects taught in Gurukul, the oldest form of educational system. The 18 subjects mostly involved in philosophy, politics, administration, Ayurveda, and also grammar, Sanskrit, astronomy, like that. They focus on all-round development and very particularly the spiritual awakenings. And the ancient yoga bothered about integrating body with mind and soul. You might have known almost all religions, they accept the soul is in existence. As far as Hinduism is concerned, there are two vacuum, tiny places in our body that is very nearer to pineal gland and also at the heart. There they feel that the soul is rested. And it is an essential part, what we call soul consciousness, pure consciousness, like that. And ancient curriculum was included the study of culture, traditions, customs, Vedas, epics, ethics, literature, and traditional Indian systems. The ancient curriculum, the traditional Indian sciences include physics, mathematics, and medical sciences, very particularly Ayurveda and Siddha. Ancient yoga education made a man self-reliant and selfless. That is a concept, the goal of yoga education in ancient times. And you know very well that during the period of Buddhism and Jainism, education became accessible to all, everyone. That is the scenario of ancient yoga education. Next, please. And as far as medieval period is concerned, the purpose became more religious, meant mainly for the children of wealthy families, but imparted free and also mainly for men, clergymen and monks. Extension of knowledge and propagation more on religions, literature, philosophy, mathematics were taught mainly, and different schools of yoga emerged, particularly Bhakti Yoga was very prominent. Here I want to quote during this medieval period, almost in India particularly, the Muslims, they ruled the country, but luckily they didn't disturb yogis. That is the plus point what I want to quote here. And another point, in ancient Indian yoga education, both sexes were given importance, men and women. Both were what we call given equal importance. That is the plus point of ancient times. Because of the foreign invasions, then we could save the lives of women. Then we have to control their actions in the medieval period. That is the story. As far as modern yoga education is concerned, you have to understand one thing. Once yoga was taught in forests and other places, during medieval period, yoga centers, they took stage in preaching and teaching yoga. In modern times, now the universities, the educational institutions, they took over and they are handling yoga education in prosperous stage. And also modern yoga education helps students to improve their skill sets, critical thinking and leadership qualities. There are so many skill sets, and you have to understand, once the world was known as the world of warfare, then the world has become spiritual stage. After that, the world came to known as technological world. Now it is creative world. So critical thinking, skill sets and leadership qualities that we are imparting more in modern education. And again, I have to quote here, more than 50% of the learners in India are women now. So if the women, if they want to dominate, or if they want to come in higher positions, these skill sets, critical thinking and leadership qualities are very, very essential. It opens up a world of possibilities and it focuses mainly on subject specific. You might have known that in ancient times, only one subject was very prominent, that is philosophy. Then all the other subjects, they came into existence only, they are all born out of philosophy in later stages. Now it is very focused concepts that we can study if we want to have any particular subject. Provides improved attention in studies, courses are maximum standardized and become very healthy concepts oriented, mental hygiene oriented, moral values oriented, like that and that. So in a simple way, what we can tell that modern education is for simple thinking and high living. Now let us see the other areas, that is in modern education, there are three notable objectives are in existence as far as University Grants Commission is concerned. What they are telling, the object is mainly making the students as creative technological. Just now I told creative, with the help of computerism. That skill-based learning is very popular now. App-based learning with artificial intelligence. Here I want to quote why it is going to be, it is going to rule the world, artificial intelligence in a short period. And it will be very useful to the yoga centers. Suppose if you want to promote your center, or if you want to promote your marketing in yoga centers, or what will be the future of yoga centers. So all kind of what we call the suggestions, artificial intelligence will tell you. Hybrid learning, that is off and online programs. Blended learning with the multimedia concepts. And also, there is an important concept that is capstone projects. What are all your experiences you have that you can do the projects? And robotics, animation, gaming, and comic technologies, all will be, if you are technologically well versed. We could see in recently, many yoga centers were closed because of the lack of support during COVID period. But those who have knowledge in computer science, they could dominate the whole world. Even now they are taking classes, online classes are very prominent. As per my one student is concerned, she is working in an institution that is 9 to 5, she will be working there, and she will come back to her house. From 7 to 10, she used to handle online classes for the clients or the patients or the trainees all over the world. That is the plus point of the concept. So these various learning processes will be, and also it is dominant even now. Next, please. And also you can see the other concepts that what we come across. The next slide, please. Employability. Employability is, next slide, what we call market dynamics. That is very, very important for any subject to get flourish. Next, please. As far as employment is concerned, it is very much essential and helpful in yoga. You take example of teachers. There are abundant opportunities for teachers, coaches, trainers, special educators, yoga retreats, yogic dietitians, wellness trainers, fitness trainers, event management, and so on. Now, I will talk about the teachers. As far as India is concerned, we need 5 lakh teaching positions. We are having only 2 lakh teachers now. Their salary is around 3 lakh rupees. We need another 3 lakh teachers at present. So abundant opportunities are available for teachers. And also coaches. It is very important to inform you that yoga competitions are very popular in India. And it is going to be like IPL cricket in future also throughout the world. So there is an abundant opportunity for coaches to make them. You have to create an academy, yoga academy, and you have to produce yoga athletes for yoga competitions. Now it is available in India, Khelo India competitions, national competitions, and also job opportunities are available in central government departments for yoga athletes. So coaches will dominate in near future. And trainers, special educators. It is very popular in, if you want to have a job in United States of America, if you go in as a special educator, there is an equally important opportunities. Yoga retreats, yoga dietitians, wellness trainers. Here I want to give an example. There is a person in Kerala known as Vinay Menon. Now he is working as the wellness coach for Belgium football team and also Chelsea football team, that is the richest football team in England and one of the important teams in Europe. So he was the wellness trainer. So if you go through his early history, he studied his basic UG degree in Kerala, and for sports psychology, he came to Pondicherry and he joined it in Pondicherry University. And also at the same time, he became the student of Saiter. That time, Saiter was in collaboration with Pondicherry University. So the whole credit goes to Dr. Anandaji because he molded him at the first. He trained, whether you know or not, he trained under your caliber and your leadership, and he went back to what we call in Himalayas and also this Kaivalya Dhamma and all, and he became a great yogic trainer. When he was giving training to the Chelsea owner, football owner in Dubai, that owner asked him to come to his club to handle relaxation for players. Now he is a world famous wellness trainer. So the whole credit goes to Dr. Anandaji. And also fitness trainers, event management, yoga therapists, and lifestyle counseling, holistic nutrition experts, integrative lifestyle medicine experts. I want to quote here. You could have seen in Indian news, Indian Express newspaper, every week or fortnight, two eminent experts in nutrition, lifestyle medicine experts, Luke Canito and also Deepika, both are experts in nutrition and also lifestyle medicine. So abundant opportunities are there. It is up to you to select where you have to go and where you have to dominate. And also the third point is grooming as a good person. That is, of course, we know very well, yoga doesn't know how to cheat. It will promote human beings as a godly-like person. Next. And also you can see, first I told about you have to be a creative, intelligent, technological person. Second, there is enormous opportunities in yoga, yoga therapy and other areas. And third, it will make you a godly-like person. And here I want to quote, very particularly in yoga therapy. 2 days back, I met a person. He is running a center in Chennai. He is a specialist in yoga therapy. And also, because of his dedication, he became a yoga therapist for a diabetologist. He used to go 2 days to him, and also he could cure a Parkinson's patient. So a neurological expert under medical expert, now he is working for another 3 days. So like that, now he is having 3 opportunities for his livelihoods. So that much employability that you are having now. Next, please. As far as higher education in yoga at present, what is going on? Now yoga 4.0 is very popular. What do you mean by yoga 4.0? You have to be in a position to teach yoga at about any time and anywhere, according to the need-based opportunities given by the student. You have to be ready at any time, any place, anywhere. And also you have to be a teacher. You can't be a dictator hereafter. You have to be a demonstrator. You have to be a collaborator. You have to be a coach for him, a mentor, facilitator. So teacher has many roles nowadays. And you have to fulfill the on-demand learning also. They may ask, I want to know this school of yoga, sir, this school of yoga like that, and all they will demand. So you have to be ready to explain, or you have to give provision for them to address socio-emotional problems fueled by advanced computational capabilities. And the main concept is locally engaged and globally networked. You can run yoga centers here in India. At the same time, you can have global approach by online classes. And also higher education in India at present provides academic and intellectual experience. So these are all the recent scenario that you have to understand. Next. And second area is research. And these are all the concepts that you have to understand. If you want to have one example, that is Dr. Anandaj. He will fulfill whatever I am quoting here. You take example of teaching, or you take example of research. Research park is very famous now. Even VIT Vellore, there is a research park they established. Laboratories. So when I was visited Shanghai in China, I could see in an university that there are 4-storied building exclusively for laboratories. So that much prominent that we could understand. Incubation centers will be there in the institution. What do you mean by incubation centers? That business people, they will have centers in a particular. Suppose if they want to promote yoga marketing, what we call the business centers, they will have their incubation centers in the particular university or particular college, and they will help the young aspirants who want to dominate in their entrepreneurship. So academic jobs are available like PhD lecturers like that, and all promoting Ayush programs, particularly for mental health. See, for the past 10 years, Ayush programs, they became very popular. Once the turnover was 20,000 crore rupees 10 years back. Now it is 1,50,000 crore rupees. 30,000 articles are being published in 10 years. Very particularly 150 articles during COVID time. There are more than 30,000 Ayush hospitals are there. Now they are going to appoint Ayush doctors, the central government, to all the Ayush hospitals. So enormous opportunities for yoga experts also, yoga therapy experts also. One thing I want to hear, quote in research, there are 2 drawbacks that they could find, the allopathy doctors they could find. Randomized controlled trials are not available. Second point, if you give Ayush treatments, there is a possibility for the patient to get liver problems. So these 2 important areas that, like Anandaji, should look into these matters, and we have to be in a position to solve. So whatever we are doing experimental studies in research, we have to go for randomized controlled trials. Then only the whole world will accept. But as far as yoga is concerned, we no need to worry, because almost all important universities in the world, like Massachusetts University, Stanford University, Cambridge University, Harvard University, Oxford University, all are doing yogic practice, yogic research. That is the plus point. So there is an abundant opportunities in research also. And manufacturing new profs, you can give attention. So research areas, it has its own magicness in future. Then comes corporate linkage. So in corporate offices, we have to handle them. Wellness programs they need, weight loss programs they need, disease prevention. If you concentrate on these areas, definitely you can promote yoga and you can shine in that area also. So because here I could see almost all the participants, you are very intelligent and intellectual persons. So these concepts, you please look into that and make it possible, make it the dream come into true. Then comes knowledge transfer, setting up campuses abroad. New education policy of the central government allows the foreign universities to come to India and also our universities to go abroad. So setting up campuses abroad, encouraging foreigners to study in India are possible. So these are all the latest scenario in yoga to make it more popular and to become more prominent experts. Next, please. Then international outlook that you have. There are, again, I am repeatedly telling a lot of opportunities to work and go abroad. Tourism, yoga tourism, yoga marketing, yoga director for yoga centers around the world, healthcare sector. Here, what I want to tell you, you are having very good opportunities in United States of America because 12% of the Americans are doing yogic practices. 1 lakh yoga teachers are United States of America. And also, if you teach them, definitely there is a possibility to gain $25 per hour for handling. Special children, so many opportunities. So that Canada, America, Australia, Japan, in so many countries, you are having very good opportunities. And the healthcare sector, here I want to quote, in recent 1 month statistical survey, if you go through, 30% of the Indians are suffering with hypertension. 15 crore women are having menopausal problems. 17 crore patients are having problems with diabetic retinopathy. 35 students, they commit suicide every day in India. Globally, it will be 50% obese will be around in 2035. And also at present, dementia is one of the worrying psychological disorder. 5.5 crore people are suffering with dementia, particularly 1 crore people in India. So these are all the latest. 53% of the deliveries in among Indian women are cesarean. According to World Health Organization, it should be only 10%. So these are all, if you go through all these things, whether it is hypertension or diabetics or stress, so whatever you have, whatever I told the statistical report, yoga is the major number one remedy. And also job related to digital age, particularly data science, data analysis, artificial intelligence. There is an abundant opportunities in startup enterprise. So you can, if you have startup, if you start, it can be service orientedness, you can produce products, you can sell it, and also organic products, crops, even you can frame your own yoga training, yoga therapy modules, new schools of yoga you can frame, new techniques you can make established, new courses you can frame. These are all the abundant and very large amount of opportunities are there. Next. So you no need to worry about getting jobs in India. Abundant opportunities. I also requested Dr. Anandaji and other IOA members to have a separate committee to look after the job opportunities abroad. So there we can expand or we can explore the opportunities in yoga. So here, these are all the yoga programs I could start in Tamilnadu institutions in the last 13 years. BSc Yoga, BSc Yoga Therapy, MSc Yoga, MSc Yoga Therapy, and also first time in Tamilnadu, we could establish or we could introduce MPhil and PhD programs. So these things that we have to be grateful to yoga because opportunities they utilized by the students. So at this juncture, I express my sincere thanks to the students who participated in all these programs. And also I could introduce so many new courses in yoga in these programs. Next, please. New courses, that is subjects, what I call. As far as my knowledge is concerned, I introduced these courses in yoga programs, that is methodology of teaching yoga, computer applications, because we introduced 10 years back all these things. Indian traditional systems of medicine and therapies very particularly, and the statistics in yoga, biomechanics in yoga, and yogic diet, yoga and wellness, yoga profs, modification of yogic practices, and yoga for ability beyond disability people. We introduced these papers exclusively in all degree programs. Next, please. And also very particularly, what I want to tell you, it is because of the God's grace, I could initiate yoga colleges in Tamil Nadu. 5 yoga colleges we established. That is, you might have known yoga universities or universities having yoga departments. But colleges exclusively for yoga has been introduced for the first time in India. And also with God's grace, I have the opportunity to be the part of the programs. And now let us come to the final area, that is future trends in yoga. What will be the trend in future? So far we had seen the ancient times, medieval times, and present times. What will be the future? Yoga has been included in the national education policy. Almost all schools and colleges, they will be having yoga as the vital part of educational system to promote their intellectual experience. So almost all the students and college students, university students will be in participation of yogic concepts hereafter. And also here what I want to quote, what we are doing at present, what we are having at present, UG and PG programs, only one core subject. But hereafter, yoga plus computer science, both will be the core subjects. Artificial intelligence and yoga, not only mere biochemistry or biology or physics like that. Every program you will be having computer science or artificial intelligence as a core subject. So you please get ready for that also. And the establishment of ultra-modern, state-of-the-art international standard yoga stadiums will come into existence because yoga competitions are becoming popular. It is unavoidable. See, we have to accept yoga, that philosophically speaking, we can speak in some other concepts. But if we want to make them more popular in the world, we have to accept yoga competitions also. For example, you imagine India or you imagine Australia without cricket. But the cricket is not only for winning and losing. It promotes togetherness, world brotherhood. The same thing will be for yoga competitions also. Sophisticated research laboratories with high-tech equipment and fitness centers will be the order of the day. Next. And also scientific coaching system. You have to produce athletes like Tata Football Academy, where in Jamshedpur, that academy whom they produce, they will get immediately job opportunities. Like that, if you start yoga academy for yoga athletes, scientifically you have to coach and you can become more prominent. Modern Center of Yoga Therapy and other holistic therapies will be the order of the day. Ranking system from international accreditation agencies like QS and Times Higher Education will be the order of the day. Integrative medicine will be the order of the day as because it costs less and less side effects. Because Ayush have good MOUs with the AIMS Hospital, ICMR, and the CIMR. So now it has grown like anything. Development is more in research areas. So integrative medicine. So far what we are calling yoga is a complementary therapy. Yoga is an alternative therapy. Yoga is an adjunct therapy. Now the new term has come into existence that integrative medicine. Yoga has become the integrative medicine of Ayush system. And so far what we call promoting yoga loving world. So far we love yoga, but we have to practice yoga. That is our aspiration. We have to promote yoga loving world into yoga practicing world. So we express or we expect your cooperation to make this world yoga practicing world. So with these words, I express my sincere thanks to you. With only one thing I want to quote here, you might have known Indra Devi. Actually, she is from Russia. At the age of 15, she come to know that there is a subject called yoga. So she wanted to learn more. She came to India. She tried to get opportunities in various centers. That time, no one was ready to teach Hatha Yoga to women. But with the request of Mysore Maharaja, Krishnamacharya started giving yogic practices to her. She learned from him first and she got many opportunities in various schools of yoga. Not only she was very popular in India, she went to China, promoted yoga, went to European countries, promoted yoga, went to States, promoted yoga, went to South American countries, and at the last she was in Argentina. She lived for 102 years. She is now known as the first mother of yoga, first lady of yoga, mother of yoga. So one woman can do many things. So one woman can transform anything. Like that, you take the living example of Dr. Anandaji. One person, he takes yoga globally. So what I want to expect from you, be like Dr. Anandaji, be like Indra Devi, and let us promote yoga in the world. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Elangovan ji. You have given a comprehensive bird's eye view of how yoga came into the educational system here and how so many courses are being conducted by universities, colleges, and especially for the young people who are part of this FDP. I think to know that the different opportunities that are there for them, I think it is important because, an army cannot march on empty stomach. So he has given amazing bird's eye view of the opportunities, and Professor Elangovan sir has guided so many people and been an influential figure in the educational settings here in Tamilnadu. And as I said, he is recently also suggested IYA should create a special wing to help our Indian yoga professionals go abroad and spread the message of yoga. And we are looking into that, in fact, in our next Executive Council meeting. I would like to at this time welcome also our second speaker who's here, Dr. Khalsa. Such a pleasure to see you. Happy midnight for you. Happy midday for us here. And to be with us at this, they call it an ungodly hour, but for yogis, everything is godly. And knowing my dear Satvir, every moment for him is a godly moment. Before we go to Dr. Satvir's talk, we have a few minutes if there are any questions for Professor Elangovan. You could, if you want, you just put up your hand. I will let you unmute. Because last time we had issues with a lot of background noise. I put participants on mute today. But if you put up your hand, I can do that, or you can type it in the chat box. There was earlier a question about how yoga is related to physics and mathematics. I don't know where that came from, but if you would like to say some words, someone had asked a question, Ananya, how is physics and mathematics related to yoga?
No.
Yes,
I think she misunderstood. I told in ancient systems, ancient India, 18 subjects were taught. Among that 18 subjects, yoga was one among them. And also I told other subjects also being told for the development of total well-being.
Okay.
That is the concept.
Okay, so it's an all-round.
But also those principles also will be useful to us. Because already I told you that you should have knowledge in maths, you should have knowledge in computer science, you should have knowledge in, if you have in yoga and maths, you can become a data scientist, data analysis, and also artificial intelligence expert. There are abundant opportunities, and also the physics principles are very much usable to establish a new kind of yoga asana like that. So that forces and other things, the biomechanical principles that also comes under physics, that is also needed for us.
I would like to also acknowledge the presence of our respected Professor T.M. Srinivasan sir, who's joined us. We had an illuminating session with sir yesterday. So thank you, sir, for joining us today also. Any questions from anyone? Jnanadev, you have anything you would like to point out? Jnanadev's joined us at a very early morning hour from, are you in Wales or in Portugal?
I'm in Portugal, and it's really amazing. I cannot have my morning starting better than the way it is with you all. Thank you. No, sir, it was really amazing, and I thought sort of presenting these yogic opportunities in so many fields, and it's also quite mind-opening that how we can extend our yoga and yoga chikitsa in diet, in lifestyle, and the research and aesthetics and all that. And I guess to me feels like we got so much work to do. So much work to do. So thank you.
Thank you.
We also have with us Professor Ingen Hagen from Norway, again up at a very early hour. Would you like to say anything, Professor?
Yes, thank you very much for a very interesting talk, and you painted a picture of a very bright future for yogis, yoga teachers, yoga therapists, yoga researchers. But I was thinking, because as you probably know, Dr. Ananda has also pointed out issues like cultural misappropriation of yoga. And I see it also in Norway, where I live, and yoga is very popular. But a lot of times you see versions of yoga that is very far from the origins. And while yoga also as a research is starting, it's not as integrated into universities and research institutions like perhaps it's starting to be in India and also in some other countries. So some reflections perhaps from you on the challenges in the spreading and diffusion of yoga, yoga therapy, yoga research. So we are making sure that yoga is also true to the intentions of yoga, not just some stereotypical version where the emphasis is on the physical. It becomes another fitness strategy. And also in research where yoga is not seen as a science, but just something that can be add on to the real therapies, like in psychology or medicine.
Madam, for your kind information that recently 21 international articles have been published in international journals. That is the plus point of yoga and yoga therapy. Our Prime Minister, he introduced the yoga in United Nations, UNO organization, that he emphasized the two important things. One is for health promotion and another one is for therapeutic promotion. So of course, beyond that, we have to be getting peace only if we go for blissful state, that is divinity. So getting divinity is the ultimate goal of yoga. So we have to satisfy both short-term as well as long-term planning and execution. So we can become a godly-like person, and definitely yoga will.
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to request Devasena Bhavanani, who's joined us from the ashram, to say a few words for Elangovan, sir.
Namaste, everyone. Namaste, Ji. So happy to see you and have your wonderful section. And it was so nice to have you. And always I will try that. No, I should not miss whenever Elangovan sir coming or wherever he is coming into program. I always ask Dr. Sir, even though when we are coming to Chennai, did the Elangovan sir coming to the program? I'll check the chief guest list always actually. So you are like a Jyoti for the whole Tamil Nadu actually. As our Dr. Sir taking care of the yoga, almost every country even actually, but mainly in the Pondicherry also. But you are just taking care of like Swamiji Ammaji. I mean, teaching all the people, like from ordinary to the great actually. So everyone can help, have benefited from yoga, thousands of students. So like that, I feel with you actually in Tamil Nadu, and you are making all the kids to do the program and the course and have the knowledge. As you mentioned, you are making the awareness for the yoga for even the ordinary students who are not going to do the course. You are just making them, you can do the course and making them the chance. And always, I also missed that chance. I always feel I couldn't come to your university, but I'm happy that our sincere students, Daya, Balaji, always, they did the course with you. So always I missed. So I don't want to miss any of your lectures, any of your programs. And always I have the feeling that I missed to come because I never had feeling to go and study anywhere actually, because already it's a ocean of wisdom, Amma Swamiji's I didn't even learn a handful actually. So, but still somehow I always felt that I missed to come and study with you. Always there. So you are the like a whole wisdom giving for the whole Tamilnadu. That's a great seva in the yoga society, for yoga society. Thank you, Ji. Your blessings.
But actually, Ammaji and Dr. Anandaji both are my inspirations. They are the source of inspirations. I am very fortunate. Thank you.
They are the pioneers for almost our Indian culture, actually. Not only in yoga, dance, music, singing, chanting, bhajans, of course.
Yeah,
Science,
definitely.
research, everything actually. Thank you, Ji.
That is their uniqueness that we have to acknowledge, and we are blessed.
I remember a few years back, we had some students doing the higher studies, and Professor Elangovan had accepted to come as external examiner. And he asked a question, what is the core concept of yoga chikitsa according to Dr. Ananda? And my students who were studying with me couldn't give the concept, and he gave them the concept perfectly. You know, sometimes you wonder, you know, what happens. And I remember that day very clearly, that he observes each word, assimilates it, and expresses it. And recently at the Yoga Tech conference in Hyderabad, each person had only 4 or 5 minutes to speak. And we had 30 eminent speakers, each 4 or 5 minutes. And everybody was trying to see how they could get the point across. And Elangovan sir was able to get the point across amazingly well. So we really appreciate you dearly, sir. Thank you for always your support to SBV, to our CITER, and now to ISCM. Looking forward to more collaborations with you in the future years, sir.
Maybe Anandraj will have the blessings to study with you, sir. He's looking forward for the course. Thank you so much, Ji.
I would like to now give over to our ISCM School of Yoga Therapy team to introduce our next speaker of the day, my dear Dr. Khalsa from Harvard. And before they give the official introduction, I would like to say that, my dear Satvir, you are an inspiration for so many of us, especially when it comes to the yoga research, keeping the yoga in yoga, which Professor Ingrid was asking about, keeping the yoga in yoga, keeping the yoga in yoga therapy, keeping the yoga in yoga research through all your symposiums and all your efforts. And having known you for now a couple of decades, I must say that you are one of the very few in the yoga world who I can acknowledge as a true yogi. And that comes from the heart, and your acceptance to speak for us today live, despite it being midnight where you are, means so much to me. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, dear Satvir, and my team will give the official welcome and introduction.
Namaste,
Thank
sir.
you, sir. Thank you very much.
Namaste, sir. Vanakkam. Pranams to Dr. Sadbir Khalsa, sir. You are one of the inspiration. As I said, you are one of the stalwarts in the field of yoga and medicine. So we are just giving you a short introduction about who you are. Dr. Sadbir Singh Khalsa, sir, is a director of yoga research for the Yoga Alliance and the Kundalini Research Institute, research associate at the Benson Henry Institute for Mind-Body Medicine, a research affiliate at the Osher Center for Integrative Medicine, associate professor of medicine at the most famous Harvard Medical School at Brigham and Women's Hospital. He has conducted research on yoga and yoga therapy since 2001 and has been a practitioner and instructor of Kundalini Yoga since 1973. His research has evaluated yoga from insomnia, chronic stress, and anxiety-related disorders, and in workplace and public school settings. He works with the International Association of Yoga Therapists, promoting yoga research as scientific director for the annual symposium on yoga research. He is the editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Yoga Therapy. He is a medical editor of the Harvard Medical School Special Report Introduction to Yoga and chief editor of the medical textbook, The Principles and Practice of Yoga in Health Care. And more than this, I want to share one big thing that both Sadhbir sir and our director, Dr. Anand Balayogi sir, got DSC award together. So that is one of the special moments I always highlight with Sadhbir sir and our director, Dr. Ananda sir. Sir, you are one of the most inspiration in the field of yoga and yoga therapy and in the integrative medicine. We are looking forward to your speech, sir. Over to you, sir. We welcome you on this international FDP section. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. Dr. Nandaji, it's very nice to see you as well. Congratulations on conducting such a valuable seminar program in celebration of International Day of Yoga. So my presentation will be focused on the studies and research that's been done and the value of yoga in the public school setting. And so this is something that is, I think, of very high value. I'm hoping to share with you a number of different characteristics with respect to this topic. I want to take you through some of the problems that we are having with our youth, our children in schools, and then to show you the rationale for how yoga has benefit, and then to share with you some of the research evidence that has been done with respect to studies on yoga in schools. Now, with respect to youth challenges, I think that most of the population is really unaware of the depth of the problem that we are experiencing in modern society with respect to our youth, and particularly our youth in schools. And these are challenges that occur throughout a childhood, from toddlers, from very young children to high school students. And that includes the epidemic that we are experiencing internationally of chronic stress. It is definitely affecting our children. This comes from many sources: developmental, family problems, social issues, academic challenges, societal issues in general. One of the biggest burdens, as I'm going to share with you, is mental health, including all of the mental health conditions. There's problems with behavior in our schools, including things like apathy, violence, lack of social skills, bullying, absenteeism. This is reflected then ultimately in their performance in school, their academics, and not only in terms of grades, but dropping out of school. And then associated with all of this is actually a problem with physical health. We have burden of obesity and diabetes in our children that were never seen before in history. And then the advent of very common, all too common attention deficit disorders. Now, just to show you some of the characteristics, in the United States, we have an American Psychological Association, which conducts surveys on stress, and they attest to not only the burden in adults, but also in children. This is from a few years ago. There seems to be a troubling trend emerging among families in which parents are underestimating how much stress their children experience and the impact their own stress has on their children. Children as young as 8 years old are reporting that they experience physical and emotional health consequences often associated with stress. And of course, stress is one of the major risk factors for mental health problems, and that is reflected in this paper that showed that the majority of adult conditions actually began in adolescence. So this really argues for the need for prevention at the level of childhood and adolescence. And then they also noted the need for large untreated child-adolescent disorders. And that is highlighted in many papers. These are a few of these. In this paper in 2018, 10% of youths experienced serious emotional disturbance with substantial impairment. The prevalence of clinically significant mental health disorders have a rate of 23.7%, with 1 in 4 adolescents having a disorder with impairment. And another paper in 2009, the most consistent factors involve indicators of stress, the major risk factor for development of these conditions, and indicating that personal resources such as mastery can enhance resilience to the onset of these medical these mental health problems. One of the most disturbing papers was published in a survey that was conducted in the United States following children from the age of 9 to 21, indicating that the prevalence of psychiatric problems by age 21, the cumulative prevalence exceeds 80%, suggesting that the experience of psychiatric illness is nearly universal. And we have in the United States a National Youth Risk Behavior Survey, which studies the effects and the burden of these mental health problems in our children. These are showing that the percentage of high school students who describe themselves as slightly or very overweight is 32%. That's a third of the population reporting excessive weight. In terms of those who drink alcohol, that is 30% as well. Again, a third of the population is actually drinking alcohol early. In terms of the students who were bullied on school property, indicating real problems with behavior, that's 20%. 1/5 of students are bullied, indicating a real serious behavior issue in our schools. More seriously is the extreme burden of mental health problems. And this is one statistic that is very disturbing. The percentage of high school students who seriously considered attempting suicide is 19% of the population. And in females, it is 24%. This is very extreme. And going a step further, the percentage of high school students who actually attempted suicide is a total of 9%. 10% have actually attempted suicide, with the numbers in females being higher at 11%. And this is not changing over time. This percentage of high school students who attempted suicide, as you can see from 1991 to 2019, is really unchanged. We are unsuccessful as a society in helping our children prevent this huge burden of depression and suicidality. And the problem extends not just in the US, where we have probably the best statistics, but also in India. So this is from a paper in 2022. India is home to the largest number of adolescents globally, comprising about 1/5 of its population, 243 million. A meta-analysis reports that 6.5% of the community and 23% of school children and adolescents have psychiatric disorders. India has the highest youth suicide rate globally, and suicide is the leading cause of mortality in this population. The National Mental Health Survey reported a 7% prevalence of psychiatric disorders in 13 to 17-year-olds and was nearly equal among both genders. So the problem clearly is in India, and I'm sure across all of the countries in the globe. So what is the scientific rationale for yoga? And I don't have time to do an entire talk, which I could do to really summarize the psychophysiological benefits of yoga. But this is a model that summarizes this research. We're defining yoga, of course, as mostly traditional yoga that incorporates not just the asanas, but also the pranayama, the deep relaxation practices, and very importantly, the meditative components. And this is what has been researched, and this is what has been implied in yoga interventions in school settings. And what we know is that on the physical level, all of these components, either individually or together, improve physical functioning in a box I'm calling fitness, things like flexibility, strength, coordination, balance, respiratory function, which leads to an overall self-efficacy. It is also through each one of these components together in yoga, we're improving self-regulation of internal state. Most importantly, stress and emotion regulation, which leads to the skills of resilience and tolerance to stress, emotional equanimity, which leads to an overall psychological self-efficacy. Through the meditative component of yoga, we are engaging the attention networks of the brain, training our attention networks to increase mind-body awareness or mindfulness, which improves cognition and concentration and ultimately leads to the state of cognition, the realization that we are not our thoughts and that we have the capability through these training practices in yoga to have control over and self-regulation over our thought processes. And then finally, with regular practice over time, longer periods of time, typically we see inductions of these unitive states during meditation practice. The experiences of transcendence, the flow state, which leads individuals to a deeper transformation, a change and improvement in life meaning and purpose, and what we might refer to as pure spirituality. So one thing we can see from this model is we're making changes across a broad spectrum of human functioning, from the level of connective tissue and muscle to the deepest experiences that humans can have. And these are all interactive and interrelated. We have very strong research on the fitness aspect, and over the past 2 to 3 decades, we've seen enormous advances in our understanding of how yoga works on self-regulation of internal state and improving mind-body awareness through studies on neuroimaging, brain scan studies, through molecular biological studies, through biochemical studies, and behavioral studies. And spirituality can be studied, and this is a growing field of research. So overall, yoga can lead to improvements in global human functionality, from the physical and mental health and performance, to improvements in stress and emotion regulation, awareness, mindfulness, and the induction of metacognition, to the deepest experiences, to making better functioning individuals with positive behaviors, improvements in well-being, life values, life purpose and meaning, and even improvements in spirituality. So clearly, yoga is positioned to make global changes, to affect the global burdens that children are experiencing in modern life. And so the argument is for those of us involved in this area that yoga needs to be taught to our children, and it needs to be incorporated into our public school settings. So what is the evidence and the epidemiology and the prevalence of yoga for children and adolescents? Well, in the United States, we have accurate surveys that are done about integrative medicine, including yoga practice in the general population. And we have statistics for children aged 14 to 17. These surveys were done in 2012 and 2017. And what you can see is that it is increasing in the United States. It's gone from 3% of children to 8.4% of children. And this is mirroring the exponential increase in the popularity of yoga in the West. What we are also seeing is that same increase in India. The statistics we have in India show that, at least from one survey, that 12% of the population is practicing yoga. And in a survey of schools, in the survey of 4,219 schools across India, it was reported that 97% of schools included yoga practices in their curriculum to some degree. So this is a very positive sign that in India, at least, they are taking advantage of their traditional practices and incorporating them into the school settings. We have very many programs that are out there now with the applicability of yoga for children specifically. Many different programs have been developed. This is one of them, called Yoga Kids. Another program is called Yoga for Youth. This being implemented not only for children in general, but also in public schools. And it's also reflected in the number of books that are being published here in the West. We have now many books on yoga for kids. I Am Yoga, Go Yoga for Kids, Yoga for Children. Of course, these books are portraying how it is possible to deliver and instruct these practices in a way that children will engage in them, which is very important. There are more books going into teens, and not only into just yoga in general, but now also books on showing that yoga has benefit for specific conditions like autism and special children with special needs. We also in the West have had an ongoing series of conferences in different countries. This is the National Kids Yoga Conference that has been held a number of times here in the US, bringing together a number of researchers who have been studying the implementation of yoga for children and yoga in public school settings. In terms of the published literature, there is a growing body of this research. This is a very nicely done paper by my colleague Lisa Cayley-Isley, who is now in the UK, who's done research and clinical work with children. And this is a very readable and useful guide for how to implement yoga for children and how it has benefit for clinicians as a therapy. This is a very interesting report published in 2016 by the American Academy of Pediatrics, showing credibility for mind-body therapies in children and youth. And again, this is a publication that's also freely available. We have included in our book, The Principles and Practice of Yoga in Healthcare, a whole chapter on yoga therapy for pediatrics, in which we discuss the burden, the rationale, and the evidence for yoga for children and in public school settings. And there have now been a number of reviews more recently published. This is a paper we published not too long ago, summarizing the research on yoga for children in terms of clinical benefits. What we found was that there were 3 domains: psychological, behavioral, cognitive, and psychophysiological and physical functioning. And we found that yoga improved outcomes in at least one of these 3 domains. And we concluded that results indicate growing evidence that yoga is a promising intervention for children and youth. And what these benefits are, the studies have shown a number of different very important topics. Of course, stress, which leads to mood disturbances like anxiety and depression, self-concept, cognitive function, memory and perception, physical components like flexibility, cardiopulmonary fitness, psychomotor and neuromuscular performance, and even medical conditions like improving weight management. So yoga has benefit for children. It can be taught to children. We know that for sure. And so the issue is now, how do we bring it to the most children possible? Because in the statistics for who is practicing yoga, it is really dominated by whites in the United States, and also by families who are of higher income and of higher education. So the importance here is, how do we bring yoga to all of the children, to even the lower socioeconomic status and minority populations? And the answer to that, of course, is to make it universal. And the way to make it universal is to bring it into the public schools. Now, our schools currently do not have any strategies that are taught for our children to develop our so-called socio-emotional learning. They were developed as the factory model of education. Schools were built to train future factory workers during the Industrial Revolution. The belief was the back door of the school leads to the front door of the factory, and students should only be taught the essential skills required to become a successful factory worker. And so as a consequence, our schools are not focused on social emotional learning, development of internal psychological strength and resilience and stress management. However, I mean, there have been luminaries who have argued for this whole idea. Back in 1914, Lewis Terman, leader in the field of education, predicted that the health and welfare of a child will be regarded as one of as much importance as arithmetic and geography. And of course, this prediction has failed, because we are now more than 100 years past this prediction, and we are nowhere near this implementation of health and welfare as important in our schools. In Yoga Mimamsa, the Swami Kaivalyananda argued that in the physical education of schoolboys, we have not only to provide for muscle building, sports and games, but also for coordination of mental and physical education, and argued that there should be implementation of yoga exercises in programs in public schools. And this argument was made in 1928. In 1972, he actually argued for the crash program in certain places to introduce yoga exercises in secondary schools. And they found this program here in which they trained 23 teachers from different districts to undergo training programs at Kaivalya Dhamma, which they could then implement in their public school settings. Now, this has been recognized by a number of agencies, both international and federal. The Center for Disease Control in the United States has argued for the whole school, whole community, whole child model, incorporating not just support for the academic components of children, but for all aspects of their life, including nutrition, physical education, physical activity, health education, etc. And of course, yoga fits very well with this model. Another agency has been the Collaborative for Academic and Socio-Emotional Learning, which has argued for the implementation of socio-emotional learning in our schools, including things like self-management, self-awareness, and social awareness and relationship skills, all of which yoga is very much relevant to. And so this is an agency which is arguing for revising our school curricula to incorporate important socio-emotional learning. Of course, the great Swami Vivekananda argued for the importance of these kinds of issues in children. He argued that the practice of meditation leads to mental concentration. The very essence of education is the concentration of mind, not the collection of facts. If I had to do my education once again, I would not study facts at all. I would develop the power of concentration and detachment. and then move on to greater learning and becoming a more complete human individual. The great William James, who met Swami Vivekananda as he visited in Boston, was a leader in the field of education in the United States. He argued that the faculty of voluntarily bringing back a wandering attention over and over again is the very root of judgment, character, and will. And of course, he's arguing about the practice of meditation. He argued that no one is master of himself if he have it not. An education which should improve this faculty would be the education par excellence. So we have had luminaries who have argued for the importance of yoga in education. Now we have published a paper that really summarized the rationale for why yoga should be implemented in public schools through its role in social-emotional learning. Our research results suggest that providing yoga within the school curriculum may be an effective way to help students develop self-regulation, mind-body awareness, and physical fitness, which may in turn foster additional socio-emotional learning competencies and positive student outcomes, such as improved behaviors, mental state, health, and performance. And we've also done a survey in the United States of the programs that have been run in public schools. And there are a number of these. In fact, what we found, and this is published way back in 2015, we found 36 programs that offer yoga in more than 940 schools across the United States, and more than 5,400 instructors were trained by these programs to offer yoga in these educational settings. And so this was now 8 years ago, so this has grown as well. So there has been a grassroots movement in many schools, although a very small fraction of the total where yoga has been implemented to some degree. And working with one of the organizations we have here in the United States, the Yoga Service Council, they have published this very valuable best practices for yoga in schools. It's available on Amazon. It really argues for the implementation of yoga in schools and provides really the strategy for how to bring yoga into a school setting, the do's and don'ts about how to do this implementation. And this is a very valuable book here in the West. So we also have programs that are specifically designed for implementation of yoga in schools, providing exact curricula for how this can be implemented for specific teaching modules and for training of teachers, yoga teachers, as to how to implement this. That was Yoga Ed. This is another program called Bent on Learning. In fact, this was implemented in a widespread way in New York City. And we have another program called Pure Edge that was implemented in many schools. In fact, there was funding even available for studies done in 6 different schools across the United States. And this was applied across many schools in school districts. I have worked with the Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health. They developed a program called Kripalu Yoga in the Schools Teacher Training, and we use their program in some of our early research on yoga in schools. My colleagues at the Holistic Life Foundation have really developed an international reputation for their work on yoga in the public schools. They began studying and implementing yoga in inner city Baltimore public school settings, and they are now well recognized as leaders in this field of the application of yoga in public school settings. I work closely with the Yoga for Youth program with my colleagues in Kundalini Yoga, which have developed the program that we have also studied with respect to implementation of this program in public schools. So what is the evidence? What is the research base of actually studies of yoga in schools? And this is a growing area of research. In 2016, we published this review paper, which talked about the number of studies that have been done. This number was fairly small. There were 30 studies done in India and only 30 studies done in the United States and 15 done in India by that time. 41 studies is not a lot in any field of research, but of course we've hopefully seen a growth of that research. Only 57% of those studies at that time were randomized controlled trials. And so summarizing this research, at that time, there was only less than 50 studies. Most were done in elementary schools. Many did not use control or comparison groups. Many were after-school programs not implemented within the school curriculum. There were a number of studies that were actually reporting negative results, suggesting that the research itself needs to be refined, to be improved, to be able to capture the benefits. And there were numerous other methodological weaknesses, funding being an overriding challenge that is preventing this research from being as strong as it can be. And at that time, we also looked at the frequency of these studies. And in fact, really, all of the studies virtually began at the beginning of the millennium, but you can see there has been at least up to 2015, a strong increase in the number of publications, as well as in the number of randomized controlled trials indicated in this orange line here, also increasing, suggesting the improvement not just in the total number of studies, but also in the gold standard research design studies. So since that time, we've also had a number of review papers summarizing this growing field of research. This is from a publication in 2022 in the journal Children. The findings support the provision of yoga in schools to improve mental health and cognition, whilst also creating clear pathways for future research and school-based yoga intervention development. In 2022, again, this is another systematic review published very recently. The evidence for yoga therapies in children is encouraging. Yoga interventions may be implemented in schools as a preventative and therapeutic measure for mental health issues. And the quantitative research has shown benefits in a number of different important areas of functioning, and this covers all of the areas of importance that represent a burden in modern schools. And that includes stress coping and resilience, improvement in the self-regulation of physical and emotional arousal. That leads to improvements in mental health and behaviors, things like aggression, hostility, anger, improvements in mood, most importantly, anxiety and depression, leading to also improvements in underlying characteristics such as rumination, mind wandering, improving on positive levels, positive behaviors and positive psychological states such as self-esteem and self-concept, mental, social, and physical well-being, which ultimately then, of course, is associated with improvements in behavior. And then importantly for the schools themselves, which is important to the academic side, improvements in cognitive and executive functioning, which then immediately translates, of course, into improvement in academic performance. And this improvement in cognitive and academic functioning comes from two ways. One is to reduce the burden of stress, which is impairing the children's ability to study and to conduct executive functioning. And the other one is probably a direct impact on cognitive and executive functioning by improving the children's management and control, self-control and self-regulation of their attention networks, which is very important, of course, in cognitive performance. So just to show you a number of studies, this is an early study done by, led by my colleague Shirley Tellis. And what they did was a study in India. This was looking at the self-esteem inventory, and you can see a strong improvement, statistically significant improvements in total scores of self-esteem, general self-esteem, and parental self-esteem, with a very strong effect sizes showing that these improvements do happen with implementation of yoga in schools. My colleagues at Kaivalyadhamma have published a study recently looking at competency in verbal, mathematical, logical reasoning, and spatial functioning. And they concluded that the findings of the study indicate that yoga practice could improve general mental ability of urban residential school children. And turning to our own work, this is work that we published in 2012. This was studies on the Kripalu program in schools, and we conducted this near the Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health in Western Massachusetts in a non-urban high school setting. And what we found in sort of summary from a number of different mental health characteristics was this pattern here. And some of the changes we saw significant change in were things like social stress, attitude to school, anger, resilience to stress, negative mood state, anxiety, and anger expression. And in this chart here, what we see is that for each one of these constructs, everything that improved is shown in the pink here. And what you can see is basically over the course of a semester, this is like 3 to 4 months of time, there was really no improvement. And this was done as a randomized controlled trial in which the physical education classes were then assigned to yoga in the yoga group, and the control group continued with their regular physical education classes and sports activities. And what you can see is that the yoga really did not show much improvement. There might be some movement in anger and resilience, but this was not statistically significant. So really, we did not see improvement in the children with respect to yoga. The important point here is to examine what happened to the children that continued with their regular physical education classes. What we are seeing here is a decline and a deterioration in all of these mental health characteristics. So what we are seeing here is the cumulative and ongoing burden of mental health deterioration and problems. So what we were able to achieve here was prevention. We were able to prevent this decline in mental health by applying yoga. Now, of course, this was a very short study. These were over the course of a single semester. And so our prediction would be is that if we are able to implement yoga within the curriculum in a significant way from kindergarten all the way throughout high school, we would then hope to see not only this preventative aspect, but we would be able to see improvements in these functions as yoga has a long-term effect on their functioning over time. So that is our prediction. Our more recent work has worked with the Yoga for Youth program, a specific program that's designed for implementation of yoga in schools. They offer a specific training program. They certify yoga teachers to be able to be competent to teach in the public school setting, which is a very important skill to have, because you can't just walk into a school, of course, and teach the way you teach to adults. You need to be able to teach to children from where they are, to engage them. And of course, if they do not engage in the yoga practice, they will not gain any benefit. So it needs to be taught in a very appropriate way to children so that they will appreciate and engage in these practices. And one of the studies we did, one of the early studies we did was on a single group trial, and it was so-called charter school in Los Angeles, a population of sort of lower socioeconomic status children in Los Angeles. And in this single group study, we evaluated a number of psychological characteristics. We showed that perceived stress on the perceived stress scale was reduced by the end of the program statistically significantly. Improvements in resilience to stress were also improved. And we also saw improvements in positive mood state. There was little movement in negative affect, although again, this was a shorter term program. We also showed in a more recent study in North Carolina, this was done as an after-school program, we showed difficulties in emotion regulation being reduced, improving emotional regulation. So in this self-selected assignment study, we showed that yoga showed reduction in difficulties in emotion regulation, whereas the controls really had no change over time. And this is an important characteristic that we want to impart in our children, is this improvement in self-regulation of internal state, both with respect to stress and emotion. We've also seen qualitative research conducted on yoga in public schools, which is a very important type of research because it gives us insights into characteristics that we may not pick up with quantitative self-report outcome measures. And so we've seen children reporting positive experiences with the benefits in schools. The children have argued they would continue if it were offered. They've reported better kinesthetic awareness and self-image, improved stress reduction and coping, ability to manage negative emotions, more optimism, increased social cohesion with family and peers, and an improved school environment. And one study that we did recently, actually our most recent study, which I did not show a slide for, but this was a study that was funded by our federal agency, the National Institute on Drug Abuse. And this was a study that we engaged the Kripalu program in a Boston City school. And our goal was to look at risk factors for substance abuse. And one of the risk factors that we showed was that, and it followed that same pattern that I showed previously of prevention. What we found was that the willingness to smoke cigarettes in that study showed an increase in the students that did not practice the yoga, but the yoga practitioner group showed no change. In other words, they were preventing that increase in that important substance abuse risk factor. So I want to go further and really sort of tie together this whole qualitative aspect and go back to the logic model that I showed you, in which we showed improvements in the physical level and the fitness, in self-regulation of stress and emotion, in mind-body awareness or mindfulness, and improvements in spirituality. And through some of the quotes we had in our qualitative studies to show you that, in fact, we are seeing these changes being reported by a number of students. So, for example, in terms of fitness, one student reported, I like to run a lot, and it can usually go better when I feel flexible. And I've been feeling better when I run since practicing yoga. I also ski, and the balance has helped a lot. I do better trails, harder trails now. So this is directly reporting this improvement in physical functioning, better capabilities in sports performance, which of course leads to greater physical activity, which is one of the major risk factors of non-communicable disease, this sedentary behavior in modern society, which is likely responsible for this burden of obesity in our children. Another student said, I think I've been sleeping deeper and more comfortably, because also along with the foot on the wall, I also do the 3-part breathing so that I can relax myself before I try and fall asleep. And of course, sleep is very sensitive. It's a physical manifestation and a behavior that's very sensitive to all characteristics, and is very tied to experiences of overall mental and physical functioning. And of course, sleep is one of the characteristics we see very commonly reported in our qualitative studies. Students immediately after their first few yoga classes start to talk about how their sleep characteristics have improved. And sleep is a major burden. It's a major problem in our students as well. Not surprising, given the high burden of stress and mental health problems, which are associated with sleep disturbance. So moving on to self-regulation of internal state. One student said in one of our qualitative studies, I felt like it was easier to calm myself if I was nervous about something, or just like to deal with my stress. This is a direct report of this ability to self-regulate, to calm myself, to have self-regulation over their own internal state. Another student said, before you're taking a test, relax and breathe, and you don't get as nervous or as tense. So these students are taking these yoga practices from the yoga instruction and applying them in their daily lives. And these are skills that they now have for the rest of their lives, and they can use them in their daily lives to improve their functioning and their overall health. And breathing is one of the most commonly reported practices that they immediately gravitate to. They learn this long, slow, deep yogic breathing pattern, which of course has enormous impact psychophysiologically on emotional stress functioning and cognitive performance, as well as pain regulation. It's a highly efficient form of breathing practice. And these children and adolescents are immediately learning to apply breath regulation in their day-to-day lives. This is an example of that directly. One student said, I used breathing outside the classroom in my life to calm me down. If I was stressed or angry, I'd then do the breathing to calm me down, and I will probably continue to do this. And this is one of the huge benefits of a behavioral intervention like yoga. These are skills, and these skills are lifelong. It's not like a prescription medication where you have to keep taking a drug and keep filling your prescription. This is a behavioral strategy that these children learn, apply it in their daily lives, and they have it for the rest of their lives. And that, to me, is life-changing. In terms of mind-body awareness, one student said, I learned how to pay attention to how my body feels. This is at the heart. This is at the heart of mindfulness, of mind-body awareness, and it's the heart of yoga practice, the ability to be aware of your internal state. If you're unaware of your internal state, you're not in a position to even address the idea that change is necessary or change is possible. Another student said, respecting how my body works, the poses helped with gaining control over myself. Yoga gave me a new perspective on my body, and I have more control than I thought I did. This whole idea of self-regulation empowers students to have more control over their lives. Another student said, I noticed myself changing, an increase in self-awareness, and it felt like instant gratification. This cannot be underestimated, this whole construct of mindfulness. And it's been shown that mindfulness is one of the major constructs that can underlie behavior change. And behavior change is essential if we are to address the greatest burden in modern medicine, which is the epidemic of non-communicable disease. Mindfulness can change these dysfunctional risk factors of low levels of physical activity and of poor dietary choices and of dysfunctional health behaviors like excessive alcohol consumption and cigarette smoking. It is mindfulness and mind-body awareness that can tune an individual into the consequences of those kinds of behaviors, to reward positive behaviors like physical activity and yoga, and increase the awareness of the negative consequences of negative behaviors like sedentary behavior or poor dietary choices. And that is reflected actually in this quote from a child in one of our yoga programs. I have been eating healthier, more fruits and vegetables, and not a lot of junk food, for example, ice cream and candy. And the important thing here is that we did not address nutrition in our program. We could have, but we did not. We were focused on those 4 components of yoga. And out of those 4 components of yoga practice, we see these changes in behavior, most likely driven by the improvements in mind-body awareness. And then finally, the last component of our logic model was spirituality. Now, a lot of these studies, as I said, were very short term. They were over a course of a single semester, 3 months of yoga, and hardly really long enough to expect that there are changes in spirituality. But there are quotes that really sort of reflect some deeper experience. One student said, "I am fascinated by the culture of yoga, how people can change their lives and help themselves physically, emotionally. I am interested in learning more." We are essentially introducing a new behavioral strategy to these children and adolescents, and they are now adopting a new trajectory in life. They're interested in going deeper into these practices to become more complete and functioning human beings. Another student said, "I have been a lot more happier lately. I feel like a better person, making better choices and staying out of trouble." And of course, one thing we know about adolescents is that their prefrontal cortex, their executive regions of the brain that are responsible for making better choices, are underdeveloped. And these kinds of practices can improve functioning of children's executive functioning and allow them to become better, to adopt better behaviors and as a consequence, better outcomes in life. Now, one of the things we did was a focus group with a number of the school teachers and executives in the school after we had been running yoga into this one school in particular for a number of years. And this is a quote from the school counselor. He said, "Yoga has made a huge impact on our school. It is making our school a better place." This is a very powerful quote. And what it really reflects is the deep potential for yoga in not just improving what has gone wrong and what is a burden in modern society with our children and adolescents. It points to something in terms of positive behavior and positive impact. If we are able to teach our children these practices, we make better people. We make people who are less prone to negative behaviors, less anger, less greed, less avarice, less desire. This translates into major behaviors in modern society, which means less violence, less war, less greed, less poverty. So as we make better people, when we adopt these behavioral skills that yoga provides, we can make a better society because it's the individuals together that make the society. If all the individuals are functioning better, society will function better and we will have a better society. So this is not insignificant. And I ask you to share a thought experiment with me. Imagine that every school in the country has yoga from kindergarten all the way through high school, and that this takes place for 3 generations. We now have an entire society that has adopted these practices and it's changed their lives. You not only have wiped out the epidemic of non-communicable disease and mental health problems, you've made better individuals and therefore essentially a better society. And so this goal of implementing yoga in schools is not a trivial one. It has global implications. And what we need is the research to support the justification by policymakers, by school district supervisors to justify the incorporation of yoga into our public schools. And so research is really very important in that role. So I acknowledge the funding of the Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health, which funded a lot of our early research in yoga in the public schools. I also work with the International Association of Yoga Therapists, promoting the implementation of yoga therapy into modern medicine. And then also I serve as the Director of Research for the Kundalini Research Institute, which supports the lineage of yoga that I practice. And I also work with the Yoga Alliance, the largest yoga organization, in promoting research literacy, to really share with yoga teachers, practitioners, the science and research on yoga, so that they can use that information to further support implementation of yoga into modern society and healthcare. And as a consequence of that, we have resources on the Yoga Alliance website, we have videos, we have webinars, and also collections of research citations, which really support this research aspect, the science of yoga and its importance in modern medicine. And I like to close with something that's dear to me. This is the image of a yogi embedded in semi-precious stone into the Harimandir Sahib, the Golden Temple in Amritsar. And so I thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, dear Sadhvir. That was an outstanding presentation. And if we were all there in person, you would get a standing ovation. But from wherever we are, we give you the heartful ovation. And I think the way you have structured the concept of this whole talk is an example for all our faculty who are attending this on how you can give a talk which mixes a science with the tradition, the quantity with the quality, the problem with the solution, and the process to move from the problem to the solution. I think this is an exemplary model for all our young faculty to take up in your own presentations, because we often tend to skew our presentations towards one aspect, forgetting the rest. And I really loved the way you have brought together quality and quantity. And again, for the young researchers, a very good message from one of his studies where he said they didn't get significant findings because young researchers are scared of not getting significant findings. This is the scariest thing for young researchers. I am wrong, my study is wrong, and I'm doomed to fail. You know, this is the first thing that comes up. Working with schools, we had similar examples at JIPMA with Professor Madan Mohan and Udupa. And so I really enjoyed that slide. And even a recent study we are finding here with salivary cortisol, we are not getting significant in the yoga group. But then we looked at the controls, it's worsening. And this was peri-pandemic time where everybody was under stress. And so the yoga group were able to manage the stress better. But you know, the first thing you look at it, oh my God, this is not significant. That P value, you know, that dreaded P value. So I think young researchers can take great heart from that beautiful example and the explanation that you may not find significance, but you have prevented something from worsening. Because again and again in our yoga therapy research, what we find is often the standard medical care is not preventing the deterioration. And so the patient, the control group is deteriorating, they are worsening. But in the yoga group, you are preventing that deterioration. You are preventing the disease progression. And sometimes you're lucky, along with the prevention, you're getting an additional p-value. So I think this is a very important message, which is beyond the scope of your talk, which was focusing on health, school, youth, and yoga. And goes back to Maharishi Patanjali's Heyam Dukkam Anagatam, prevention is better than cure. I would like to request Dr. Meena, who has a hand up for a question.
Namaste, sir. Such an inspirational speech. Just one thing came up in my mind as I was listening to you is that, you know, when we are writing a paper for the introduction aspect, we will come up with, you know, make a statement, but more often it will be your name that we give as reference, because we are directly or indirectly using your statements as the introduction part. So 99 out of our 100 papers will have definitely your name as a reference. So thank you so much for such rich literary work that you have given us. That is one thing. The other question that I had for you, as a researcher, how do you come up with the topic, like the title? How do you come up with the idea that what is the basic thing that from which you have, okay, can I do something on this? Is it like the idea comes up, or is it like these are the subjects who are available for me now, so can I do something with these subjects? So it's just, I'm just curious to know how you start, how you initiate with a study. And my second question is, how is the compliance of the subjects down there when you're doing the research?
Right, very important questions. Well, the first one is actually, the answer is multifactorial. It's a number of personal issues. What is your passion? What is your interest? That's very important. And you're only going to be attracted to things and topics which are very important to you personally and that you think have value for society and for yoga. And then, of course, there are a lot of logistical factors, and these, many of them are out of your control. What is the availability of schools? What is the availability of a yoga program? What is the funding available? Who are the collaborators? Who are the yoga instructors available? Those are all very practical issues, of course, which will very much dictate what you can and cannot do. And that is very, very important. So it's really a mix, and you try and do what you can and come as close to your passion as you can, make as few sort of compromises and sacrifices as possible to still come close to what you would like to do. But it really starts with the passion and the drive and your interest. And that often comes from the need. What is the need, and what is the benefit here, and what is the significance of this? What's the scientific significance, and what's the societal significance? And some 15, 20 years ago, when I first thought about where I could make the biggest impact, I mean, very clearly the answer was bring it to the children, because they're the future. And if you're going to have an impact on yoga in society, the best place to do it is in the children, because they are the future. And if you can get it into them, then that will take care of itself. As they say in science, the science moves forward by funerals. Those people holding on to the old paradigms, they pass away, because life is finite. And so even if you can't get them to change their mind, eventually they will pass away and move on. And younger people with a new vision and more knowledge and more information will then be the leaders. In terms of compliance, that's a very important issue in public schools. And one of the things that we have done in our studies, which has been very valuable, is that we ask the school to do the implementation of the yoga. So this puts then the burden of parents who don't want their child to practice yoga. They have to then communicate to the school. And also puts the burden onto the school about any kind of adverse events and so on, which takes away some of the burden on the human subjects aspect, because now it is the school that's doing the implementation and the research is just on the outcome measures. And so we bring the yoga in, and so the school is now offering the program. So in essence, it is, if you will, mandatory. And so as a consequence, there are a few children whose parents say, I don't want my child practicing yoga for religious reasons. And there are a few children who say, I don't want to practice yoga. But 99% in our populations, at least in Massachusetts, 98% of our students were doing the practice because it was part of the school program. And so as a consequence, we had children who thought yoga was a joke, especially adolescent boys. I mean, the attitude towards yoga in the West here, at least, is that yoga's for girls. It's something that white, thin women do as a hobby. And so boys, young adolescent boys, I mean, they want to play football, they want to play baseball, they want to do sports. Yoga, that's for girls. I don't want to do that. That's nonsense. And so we have these, this population of students, some of who think that this is not appropriate. Then they start doing the practices because it's part of the school program. And then they start to have the experience of the yoga. And then suddenly they are defending yoga to their friends who are not doing the yoga. And we actually have anecdotes of this in which one student, talked about how his friends were saying, "Oh, yoga, that's for sissies. That's for girls." And he was defending it, saying, no, it makes me feel better. I feel stronger. I feel, more emotionally balanced. It makes me calm. And he was defending it. Someone who originally thought that it was something that was not for him. So through this practice, we actually see improvements in engagement as the children learn what yoga really is from the experience of practicing it. And that's very important because in Western society, there are two major misconceptions of yoga. One is that yoga is just a form of exercise. It's for thin people. It's for people who are flexible. And the other misconception is that, yoga is part of the Hindu religion. If you practice yoga, you become a Hindu. And so those are major misconceptions that we need to counter here in the West.
That was a very, very beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I have more questions, but I think I will keep it to myself for now. Next time when we get an opportunity to meet face to face, I think I will bombard you with more questions, especially related to research. Thank you so much, sir.
If anybody else would like, yes, Professor Ingan, yes.
First of all, I want to say thank you very much to Satbir Khalsa. He's always an inspiration and had played such a positive role in this field of yoga research and yoga in school research, both through his own work and also through his collaboration with a lot of young people or younger people or colleagues who want to pursue this kind of research. And I've been lucky even to have him come to Norway when, together with my colleague, Usha Siddhana Nair, we organized a workshop on yoga in school. And he was able to come and inspire us and just take part of our dialogues. So I think you have given some very important insight into why this yoga in school research is so important. And I especially liked the vision you were ending with. What kind of society would we have if yoga was offered in schools for generations? And I think this is very important because Dr. Meena was asking, how should I choose my research? And I think we are all human beings living in society, and we are yogis also. So we have some, whatever engages us, whatever we feel that this is where I could contribute, is where I can make human lives better, this is where I can contribute to my society, this is where we should try to do some research, is what I think. I also want to compliment you, Dr. Khalsa, on this openness you have, even if you yourself are trained in medicine, where, as you say, this randomized control trials is the gold standards. You're also very open to qualitative research. And I was trained as a quantitative researcher, both in psychology and in communication media studies, that are my fields. But due to how I perceive the world, I have found great interest in qualitative research too. And I think it's very important, your attitude that they both have value. I don't know how to define qualitative research, if I should call it the silver standards, but at least you can explore other avenues in qualitative research, but I think it's good for both to build on each other, complement each other, because with the quantitative research, sometimes you can see trends, you can see the bigger picture, but with qualitative research, you can sometimes understand what is laying behind the patterns and tendencies that you see. So there are many things that could be discussed. For example, this issue, should yoga be made mandatory, and how to address the misconceptions with of yoga, because that's also something I have come across when I have tried to do some small research on yoga in school. And but it's a very important avenue to spread yoga, because as you say, if you start with the children, society will improve. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hagen. Nice to see you again, and thank you for those very kind comments. And you are, of course, exactly on target with your comments. And the qualitative research is not only important, but actually I like to use these quotes because they really identify the underlying principles and experiences that people are capable of having with yoga. So yes, the qualitative research is very important.
In fact, one of my seniors in our university, he used to talk about mixed model research, where your research should have both. And I think that is the way forward, because recently we did some work and it was interesting to see, you get your p-values, you don't get them. That's one part of it. But then another part is you see these transformations. And even, what happened, one of the studies in diabetic neuropathy, out of the 30 subjects, 2 of them, there was actually reversal. But the statistics missed those 2 because they were part of the 30. The overall statistics miss it unless you go to the individual. So, I think often, multimodal approaches may give us a more holistic picture. And that is what I enjoyed about your presentation, because it has both. For those who are looking for those asterisks with the p-value, it is there. And for those who are looking for the transformative potential of yoga, I think that is what came out of what you said. And I love that fact that that boy was becoming a brand ambassador for yoga amongst his peer group. That is the toughest one. It is toughest to stand up to your friends. And this is something that we were asked by, one of the people on an inspection. He said, are you turning your nurses into yoga therapists by bringing yoga therapy into nursing curriculum? I said, no, but they are becoming ambassadors for yoga therapy. So they will experience yoga, they will know that it has use, and in their profession, they'll become an ambassador for it. They are not becoming a yoga therapist, and we are not changing professions. There is a question, Dr. Satbir, from Dr. Madangi, who runs the Mind, Body and Lifestyle Department at Ramachandra Medical University. She is a physiologist who's now head of that. And she asks, is there a specific phenotype for whom yoga works? And if we can identify it, we would know who would benefit more from the yoga treatment. Is there an actual phenotype?
Yeah, that's it. That's an interesting thought and an interesting question. I am not aware of any such research that has been done on that. And so that's an interesting issue. But it's possible to do this research. We can find out who it is that we can measure engagement. We can measure how much people have engaged in the yoga practice, and then look at their demographic and their genetic makeup, even if you will, to determine if there's any correlation between engagement and those characteristics. And that would be interesting. But of course, looking at it from a global perspective, my interest is in really getting everyone engaged, even those that have minimal engagement, to get them engaged. I'm reminded of an anecdote because the Holistic Life Foundation, my friends who run that program, invited me to watch one of their yoga classes in an elementary school in inner city Baltimore. And there's about 20 children in the class, and they're in the gymnasium, and he's leading the class, and he's leading them in certain asanas and breathing techniques and even meditation. And I'm looking at the children, and I'm seeing that virtually 75% of them are sort of marginally doing the exercises and are barely doing them. And so I asked after the class, I said, geez, it seems like, most of the children actually are not actually doing the postures and exercises. And he said, yeah, that looks deceptive because they're still learning it. We had, and he told an anecdote. He said, we had one student who consistently looked like she was not engaging in the yoga practices. And her grandmother came to the school at one point in time and told the anecdote that the grandmother was experiencing problems with headaches, and that same child instructed her into long, slow, deep breathing to help her with a technique to help her with her thing. So despite the fact that it looked like there was no engagement, there was something going on, and there was learning going on, and there was mastery happening, despite the fact that child looked from the surface to be completely unengaged. So I think these things seep into children in different ways at different levels. It's something that's of interest to study, but I think that giving it to all the children, regardless of whether they're sort of predisposed to yoga or not, I think is important. And that's why I believe it should be mandatory. I mean, you can't have a career in modern society unless you learn, the English language and history and basic geography and so on. You can't function in society. You can't function in society without these kind of behavioral interventions. So I honestly believe it should be mandatory. And the analogy I like to use is dental hygiene. I mean, we teach dental hygiene. Why not mind-body hygiene? I mean, dental hygiene is nobody thinks about it. It's implemented in society. We teach it in our schools. The same should be true of mind-body hygiene or yoga. So I think it needs to be a basic part of our learning, and therefore it belongs within the school curriculum.
Thank you so much, Sadhbir, for that beautiful answer, and to bring out the fact that people may be learning and absorbing even when we don't think they are, because children are sponges. They absorb amazingly, and you never know till suddenly one day it happens. And I think, with your concept of yoga being mandatory, maybe Sadhbir for president next time. it happens. This is where the movement in India over the past 9 years of the International Day of Yoga, with all its pluses and minuses, has brought the focus on this coming into all spheres of human activity. So I think, this is again where sometimes a bit of force, a bit of compulsion, a bit of mandation may actually be required, though democratic societies don't like that word, mandate. I think becoming part and parcel, it should be natural. As you said, learning history cannot be optional at a certain level. You may not want to become PhD in history. That's a different issue. But in school, you have to learn basic history. You have to learn basic mathematics. You have to learn certain things for society to stand up. And I just love this approach. We have all had such a wonderful time, and all of you will now know why I love Sadhbir so much. And thank you for taking the time to be with us, sharing so generously with all of us. It just means so much for each and every one of us. So wishing you all the best, Sadhbir, and over to my team for the closing part of this event.
Namaste.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that wonderful presentation, sir. So hope you all had a wonderful session today. And in coming week also, we are having two amazing speakers. So we'll just show the speakers for next week. For next week, we are having going to have one amazing sessions, and both of them are in the field of modern medicine and yoga. So again, a session by integrative, how yoga can be taken in integrative approach by the Dr. Dilip Sarkar sir, who is a past president of American Heart Association and associated with IAIT from USA, and Dr. V. Venugopal, who is the assistant medical officer and lecturer yoga and naturopathy medical college and hospital, Chennai. So again, we are going to see one of the most interesting session, how we can apply yoga and yoga therapy in an integrative way, and how we can give a wonderful benefit to the community as a wholesome therapy. So we wish all you to see you next week and join with us to have a great session again. We want to finish the session with a Shanti Mantra, Loka Samasta. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you. Namaste. Good day to all. See you next week. Bye.
Thank you. See you next week on Tuesday, same time, same place.